everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I want to say thank you again to Jesse, Sally, and the family here at Libulula. This bookstore has been such an amazing part of the community, and so much so, I'm just like, how do we have more of these in every neighborhood, all the time, everywhere? So if I ever think of a place to come to in San Diego, this would always be the place. So just to be able to come here and to envision a potential book launch here and for it to come into fruition is incredible. And just to know that it's safe in all corners of the things that actually matter, and just to find a place like that is truly special. So I know it's going to be a place that wherever I go, and not being in San Diego, I'm totally going to miss it. And but we'll also be in search of looking for other places. Tonight's agenda, we'll be learning more about our Canadian friends, Ellen and Andy. They'll be doing their book reading. Then we'll open the floor for questions and answers. Then we'll be putting together our own balikbayan boxes, which is in collaboration with the Lambda Archives activities. Then we'll do a book signing, and then we will wrap up at 8:25 promptly. So use the restrooms, get home, and get to bed, or whatever your weekend may lead you to.
I think it's just great that everybody is spending their Friday night to have me read children's books.
Healing.
It's really good.
As you're speaking, Andy, can you tell us, for those who don't know the history behind balikbayan boxes and just what it's meant for Filipino culture?
Your balikbayan boxes are boxes of stuff that migrant workers send to their families back home. And it's typically like toothpaste and t-shirts and old clothes and toys. When I was little, it was my Halloween candy. And yeah, just things that, like supplies that family members needed back home, or things that they wanted as a way of like gift giving because of their absence, long absence.
Out of curiosity, has anyone ever experienced opening up a balikbayan box or contributing to one? Yes. Contributing to one? Yeah, my mom would be like, give me your old clothes. I was like, where are my clothes going? And so then that would be it. So I'm curious, for those of you who have contributed or have received one, what were your thoughts about those first experiences with a balikbayan box? Go ahead, lead us, Joseph.
I'm sending one right now. Literally.
What's the process of the compilation, huh?
It's sometimes the most mundane things have a lot of meaning for folks. Things that we might not see as important here because it's coming from the United States has class there. So things like spam or Vienna sausage or corned beef, things that are just processed meat for us becomes a form of class and status there that people don't even eat it. Like they just display at their houses as a form of bragging rights if they got something from America.
Would you like to share?
Yeah, I feel similarly, for sure. I think that there's something really special about crafting a gift and sharing in that way. And for me, it was always my grandmother who would send out boxes, and I would just like help her put things together, and she would explain to me how there are so many things that we take for granted, and it's really like the simple things that can bring a lot of joy into someone's life.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, y'all. Andy, they're all thinking about how and what inspired this book. How did the idea come about for y'all to move forward with it? Give us context to how long ago it was, because to see an idea and to bring it to fruition into a book tours can feel like a big deal for a lot of people.
I guess Andy and I have been brainstorming a similar idea for a while now, but really refined the idea around a year ago, maybe. Yeah.
And then to also just highlight, a little glimpse of the life of a migrant worker and like their experience in family separation.
Can you further elaborate on y'all's interpretation? I'm kind of curious of how many books are about balikbayan boxes and what makes y'all's different compared to the ones that have already been written.
Ours is the best.
Best illustrations, best writing.
Yeah, well, Andy and I, we also have foundation in community work. And as such, the way we tell stories or what we think are the narratives that we want to share might be different from other children's books. I think what makes our book special is that instead of focusing well, as you can see from the text, we weren't necessarily talking about what we usually send. If you look at the images, we're illustrating experiences and potential experiences that you might have missed because of family separation.
Thank you. I also want to open up the floor for questions. If you just have a question in your hand, you're like, oh, that pings for me, feel free to raise your hand. If not, for those who do know me, I can ask questions for days. So y'all just put a stop to me when your hand goes up, okay? Awesome. So why don't we actually get into the book? Alan, if you can kind of guide us through some of the illustrations in one box. As we described it as gorgeous and tender, can you share some of your creative process in capturing the emotions and the cultural nuances of this story?
Visceral reaction to seeing this page. The colors and patterns were so bright and just fun to look at, pleasing to look at, but also felt really good. And I mean, I personally speaking don't have much association to this, but yet I still could feel the feelings that were brought up. So I think it was really well illustrated. And also, a side note, Kathleen did not know bats can be this big. They certainly can be.
What can't be that big?
Bats.
We're not gonna, that's not about the conversation today.
They're giant ones, the fun ones.
But following up with that, it was my intention also to show off a lot of Filipino crafts and to make them as
Like JoJo's wearing today.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
and to make them as beautiful as possible, or just to even just have them in the book because we want the kids to know that they exist because a lot of Filipinos
To ask questions.
aren't exposed to things like that.
And for a lot of weavers, it's their way of life.
Yeah.
Right? It's their identity, it's their way of life.
I'm glad you saw that because it takes a while to draw the pattern.
Yeah, the pinapple here. Then you have the ikat.
Jojo, what page are you looking at so we can follow along with you? Oh, the same page. Wow, y'all are keep going then on one page. And that's what I got when we were at the Vancouver event this past Sunday. So much intention behind each page. I was actually personally enamored by. I was like, can we go through each page and talk about how intentional they were? Because I never thought that a children's book could be so intentional, to the point that it was also accessible for folks, whether familiar with the Filipino culture or not. So speaking of that, I also did a little bit of research on Balikbayan boxes on YouTube, and I didn't get very far. I was trying to learn the history as someone who was born in Arizona and still learning about my Filipino culture. They were doing a lot of unboxing. And the things that I found in there, I found questionable. But of course, that's questionable coming from a privileged space. But as you all were putting items in these boxes, I was curious of how did you decide which items to include in the story and what do they represent? Because one of them is a pair of skates. I didn't find a pair of skates in these unboxings of the YouTube. So I was curious of the items you chose and the story behind them.
You want to answer that one?
Yeah, this one's super deep. Okay, so I love skating. So we're definitely putting a pair of skates. Yeah, well, again, the intention of the book wasn't to match the stuff that we usually put in the boxes, but like
It's like
create narrative.
activities
Yeah.
to do with your loved ones. Right? The time was what we were trying to emphasize, and the potential of time and the hope for time that's been lost.
Can you show us another example? I'm just like, okay, I know there's skates in there. How much does that weigh? Would that count? But I did some research. Apparently it all costs the same as long as it weighs the same, I think is what I heard, right?
You got it.
You can go as long as, I think it's like, as long as you fill the box, it's $125 regardless of weight.
Oh wait, yeah, so
Plus, you have to pay the person to be overweight. There's actually a 70-pound weight there.
On the arm it says kasama, which means ally, basically. So, yeah.
Can you actually go into further elaboration of the importance of this page?
I mean, even within the story, there's like little kind of background stories that are happening in here, and this the parent is falling in love with the person that they're doing activism work, and so you see that character kind of come about and become part of their family throughout the book. And this person is a Lola that is a relative and is also part of the family, and so you see that they do things together in the community.
That need that cheap labor, basically, to keep surviving, right?
Well,
So
within the system that
within their, yeah,
we're living in right now.
yeah.
Thank you for that question.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for
so
that.
we can't answer.
Any other last minute questions before I ask my last question, and then they'll share with us on what's next for them after this tour? Nisi, go for it.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Well, first and foremost, thank you both for sharing this because it's very personal as it is cultural. We were talking earlier, and something about this immediately resonated with me as a BIPOC woman who's lived thousands of miles away from my family and like sent boxes to them and then sending it back. And I can see so much of like my childhood, but also my adulthood in here. And I love the fact that you did this for your child and for children and generations to come. I think it's really special. So thank you both.
Well, you all kind of answered and asked the question I was going to ask them. I was going to ask, how do you hope One Box will resonate with children and families outside of the Filipino community, along with what do you hope children and families take away from reading One Box, especially those who may or may not have experienced migration or separation firsthand? So you all have already answered that. Thank you. But thinking as we're going to be creating our own balikbayan boxes, what do you want folks to consider reflecting on when packing either our little mini ones or our actualized ones as we create these next balikbayan boxes, whether to send to families? So, yeah. Does that make sense? I said, what do you want folks to consider, reflect on when packing their next boxes? So maybe it's not just a can of Spam. Maybe it is a pair of roller skates. Like, just if someone is packing their next box, is there items or things that you'd want them to think on before they pack the box?
I guess thinking of the person that you maybe haven't seen for a while or that you miss, and find objects that symbolize a specific activity, perhaps. Because, at the end of the day, it's about the experiences and not the gift giving.
All right, y'all. This is technically the second to last tour date on their tour. Their last stop is going to be in Long Beach tomorrow morning. So after your last tour date, what's next for you two?
Alan and I are headed to the Philippines. We bought one-way tickets, and we're going to figure that out later.
Andy, Alan, thank you so much for visiting San Diego and for bringing One Box to San Diego. We wish you safe travels to the Philippines and hopefully see you in the near future. So thank you all. Let's give everyone a round of applause.